I never thought check back on this, really thought about that on the same day. Because it's a lot. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
How many sets are you doing on that day? Total, like 20?
Usually more than that. I spend a pretty good amount of time there. I'm usually there for like 2 hours.
Yeah, I figured. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL matchup strategy show. 2 games, conference championship weekend. Ooh, little Niners-Eagles action. Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Little hobbled Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow looking to go 4-0 career against this guy. We got a heck of a week ahead of us. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D. On the Twitters, LOUGHY_D, joined by Matt Gajeski. It's been a while, man. Good to have you back. And of course, follow Matt at Matt_Gajeski on Twitter. What's happening, man?
Been a long time. Is this the first show we've done since the offseason that's not Showdown?
I think so.
I think it is too. Last year we used to do this strategy show, or maybe it was called the First Look Show. I don't remember.
No, we did. We did the ownership top stack show on Wednesday.
That's what it was, on like Wednesday or something. And ever since then, it's just been strictly Showdown between us.
You're right. And granted, we do a ton of them. But
yeah, we do.
we were Kyle Dvorak as well. We did. Was that 2 years ago with him, or was that last year?
2 years ago with him. Then me and you did it, I believe, the next year. And now I'm off it.
Well, glad to have you here, man. This should be a fun show for sure. And glad to have all of you fine people with us. We're looking forward to this one. Only 2 games, but that's all right. There's a lot of ways. And Ben and I like went, yesterday was first look. So we're really just thinking out loud. You're just kind of building the foundation as you go, right? And we're working through some approaches that you can take that might make you different without being stupid. There are still a lot of ways, I think, to get different on this slate, even though it's only 2 games. Yeah,
for sure. And we got a little, if you guys were playing like the Sunday only, I know a lot of you played the 2-day slate with the 4 games, but I can't help myself. I definitely played the 2-gamer. So we had a little bit of a taste of that. We've played like Thanksgiving slates. We've had a couple Saturday slates. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with some of the decisions you need to make. But especially on the championship weekend slate, we're not dealing with any bad teams. There's no teams like the Houston Texans on a Thanksgiving or something where you're like, all right, I'm probably just going to X them out outside of a one-off year. We have legitimately good quarterbacks, good running backs, good skill position players everywhere, and you can't play them all. So you do have to make decisions. And I think just the caliber teams on this slate makes it interesting compared to some of the other shorter slates we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Patrick Mahomes thing is really interesting because on one hand, you're looking at this DraftKings. Let me see if I still don't think they have a line on it, Matt. Okay. They just put it back up -1 or -1.5. Juice is on the Bengals +1.5, -115, but all morning, or for at least when I was looking for an hour or two, DraftKings didn't even have a spread up on that game.
I think they kind of got duped a little bit. I know they opened as a dog, and then obviously there was the video of Mahomes at the press conference walking without a boot, without a limp. We got to see him in whatever was open to the media. It was mostly warm-ups, but you could at least see him moving around, and he's moving around well. So it's very difficult to evaluate these things. I always look to the practice participation. He's practicing in full. And from a betting perspective, it did see like the books opened with the assumption that he would at the very least be limited, if not out of this game. And since the week has gone on, that is just very much not the case.
Give me the Bengals, Matt. Give me the Bengals.
The Bengals. I want to take the Bengals. That's me betting with my heart, though. Honestly, I probably will not make a wager on that game, but I will tell you I did take the Eagles.
You did? You're laying the 2.5. What'd you get them at? 2.5 or earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
2.5.
Not a huge difference between the 1.5 and 2.5 anyway, but yeah. Okay. That's juiced to -120 in a lot of spots. Now, do you think it hits 3 by kickoff?
I think it's at the number where you will see resistance if it goes to 3. So you might see like a one book, throw it to 3, immediately get bet down, a situation like that. But you're absolutely right. It's kind of in the dead zone right now. No key numbers sitting between 1 and 2. Every point matters in sports betting, obviously, but some numbers, especially in football, are more impactful than others. And that 3 is a very key number. And I'm sure there's a lot of 49ers backers chomping at the bit, waiting for that 3.
Absolutely. I think what these books are doing makes sense. They're just hanging the 2.5, putting the 2.5, and then just juicing the 2.5.
Yeah, it's essentially an effective 3.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. All right. Well, we got 2 games. If you guys haven't done so yet, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, and atone for your sins. Chat, I'm disappointed. Usually you're already in here saying it. Usually you're ahead of me with this one. I just hit the thumbs up. Matt, I hope that you have taken the time to do so as well. You as well, Mike Lawrence, all of you guys, get that thumbs up in there. It takes a single second. It makes me a little bit happier throughout the day. Subscribe to the channel too. And hey, if you're listening after the fact, right? If you're not watching us live, I get it. People have lives to attend to. Leave a comment down below. We try and read and respond to all of them. At the very least, read all of them. And if you're listening in podcast form, leave a rating, a review, subscribe to the pod, tell your friends about the strategy show. All that stuff goes a long way, and we appreciate you for it. All right, let's dive into it, man. San Francisco 49ers, 2.5-point dogs here, 22-point implied total against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, you laid the points on the Eagles. Doesn't mean there isn't some good value here, some good options for San Francisco. But, Matt, we have to start with McCaffrey for a couple of reasons. One, when asked if there was a chance that he might not play, he said 0. Okay, understandable. I get that. But it is interesting, and I definitely think he's going to play, just so everybody's aware of that. I do think he's going to play for sure. But it is interesting to note, at least, or worth noting, we wouldn't be doing our jobs otherwise, that neither Christian McCaffrey nor Elijah Mitchell practiced on Wednesday or on Thursday. So today should be pretty revealing to give us an idea of just how significant these are, or if they're holding back a little information out there in the Bay Area.
Yeah, huge day practice report wise, because even from just like a game planning perspective, you never want a player to miss a full week of practice, even if, that's what they need to do to get on the field, because, then they do not, all they're doing is mental reps. You don't have any actual on-field game plan. And this is the most important day of the week for them, Friday, heading into the weekend in this matchup. So seeing 2 DNPs for both of them, I think, is concerning. To me, it looks like Elijah Mitchell is the one potentially more likely to miss here. We just don't have as much information as we do on the McCaffrey situation. But it's also a spot where, how much does this really change for McCaffrey? He's not a bell cow back. He's not a feature back in terms of what Derrick Henry gets. He's a player they will use in tandem with other backs. And when they do use him, it's for situations that they're already prioritizing around the goal line. They line him up as a receiver a ton. They did that especially last week. You saw McCaffrey lined up in the slot and out wide a lot. And they want to use his pass catching skill set to help out Brock Purdy. So even if he is maybe a little limited, I think that probably just removes him from the snaps that are kind of those hollow snaps where maybe it's pass blocking, or they're just going to run it right up the middle, and they could use even a Jordan Mason for something like that. So ultimately, my read on the situation is, as far as fantasy production, I'm not expecting too much of a downgrade from McCaffrey. And if he does see a reduced snap share, I don't think it comes from the meaningful downs.
I'm with you. Absolutely. And you know what else? I just love the pass catching upside in this game. We already like Christian McCaffrey from a pass catching perspective, but doesn't it feel like there are a lot of different ways that this game could kind of evolve or devolve, depending on how you look at it, into a spot where Christian McCaffrey ends up getting a lot of targets in the passing game?
Yeah, absolutely. They've used him like last week in particular, seeing him lined up out wide in the slot as much as they did use him. That creates a lot of mismatches for teams, especially when you're facing teams that have strong defenses that maybe face more like prototypical offenses. You're not going to get that with San Francisco. They're going to use weird personnel packages. They're going to use McCaffrey out wide in the slot. They're going to do a lot of that via motion, which really tests the defense. So as far as pass catching upside on the slate for running backs, I don't really see it being close between him and any other back on the slate. Like even McKinnon, his pass catching role has been somewhat reduced in the playoffs. Now, some of the games have been a little more competitive than others for the Chiefs, but McCaffrey has this role regardless. So this is something that I think is going to continue. And that pass catching floor really kind of separates him from every other back on the slate. We saw that last week. He was the heaviest owned player across the board for good reason, and he got there despite still being banged up. So there's just so many paths for McCaffrey, the pass catching ability being the main one that I always hone in on a site like DraftKings.
Kind of weird. I wonder why DraftKings pulled his reception prop from the from the board. It's off the board now. That's interesting.
What was it before?
4.5, but the under was the under was juiced. The plus money was plus 105 to the over. So I did hit that at 4.5 receptions earlier in the week. I just think he could get a lot of work in the passing game, assuming he's not, more banged up than they're letting on to. Once you get past him, though, do you like Elijah Mitchell here, assuming he's good to go? Listen, there's also a possibility that maybe Elijah Mitchell's groin injury is more significant and Christian McCaffrey ends up getting a ton of the work. But let's assume both of them are perfectly fine. No real cap on their reps. What about Elijah Mitchell on a 2-game slate where there aren't a ton of running back spots to choose from?
Yeah, I think he's fine. A lot of people will potentially use him, I think, as a contrarian pivot. There's just not a lot of running backs, and a lot of them are in timeshares. Really, every single backfield at this point in the playoffs is a timeshare to some degree. So you look at the team that probably has the highest raw rushing expectation in neutral game script, that's the 49ers. And they have shown no hesitancy to use Elijah Mitchell as a complement to Christian McCaffrey in the run game. And again, both these guys are banged up. If McCaffrey tweaks something mid-game or something, which is certainly possible, Elijah Mitchell is a player that could definitely benefit from that. And he's also at a price point that allows you to really do whatever you want at receiver. There's a couple of these guys. So I wouldn't say he's my preferred play down here, but I think he should definitely be in your builds. And he's going to allow you to jam Jamar Chase and some of the other stud receivers we have on the slate. I don't even hate playing him with McCaffrey. If this is an alternate game script, let's say you're playing large field Millie Maker style tournaments, I think it's perfectly viable to use these players together. And in that instance, you're probably looking at a situation where San Francisco leads through most of the game and probably wins.
How do we approach the pass catching positions where that there are good options here? Of course, Philadelphia Eagles can generate a ton of pressure. All 4 of the rookie quarterbacks who have made it to the conference championship in the past in NFL history, all of them have lost. Brock Purdy makes number 5. This would be an incredible story if they end up getting the win here and going on to the Super Bowl with Mr. Irrelevant. It does feel like one of the toughest matchups a rookie is going to face, especially if the Eagles are managing to get into the backfield there and generate pressure. So who do you think benefits the most from that? And who do you like most among George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk? We talk about Jennings as well, but it's mostly those 3 we're getting into.
I like Deebo the most, and part of it is this muddled running back situation. Let's say both these guys, I don't know, maybe they both get limited practices today, and they both head into the game banged up to some degree. I see some people talking about this in chat. I think Deebo Samuel might end up playing more running back.
I can see that for sure.
When they need an actual playmaker at running back, I do not think they're going to rely on Jordan Mason. Let's say they're both more injured than we think. Sure, Jordan Mason's going to play some. We already saw Deebo Samuel play season highs in snaps since week 12 over the last 2 playoff games. So they've already upped this volume a little bit in the run game, and now you're dealing with injuries to both backs ahead of him. So I think you might see more carries for Deebo Samuel. Not a ton, but I think it's just a slight uptick, which increases his floor because they're not going to do that with Ayuk. They're not going to do that with Kittle. And then whatever he gives you in the pass game is a bonus on top of that. Plus, they've used him in really high leverage rushing situations in the past. We saw this last year where they're near the goal line. They'll pull whatever rotational back they're using at the time and then use Deebo instead. So it's kind of a way to dovetail into the pass game here. I think he's going to have the best volume among receivers too. Out-targeted everyone not named Christian McCaffrey last week, leading target share on the year. And, last week we saw him at just an egregious price tag. So a little more affordable in this game, but I still see no problem jamming Deebo Samuel in addition to 1 or 2 of the studs here. 5,700, I think he should probably be a little bit closer to the A.J. Brown's, Jamar Chase's. With that said, he's probably going to come with some pretty exorbitant ownership too.
I think I agree with you on this one. I mean, the Eagles have 2 great corners outside. Bradbury's been good. Slay has been great. Avonte Maddox might be back too. Pay attention to that. He returned to practice yesterday. That would be significant in the slot and kind of bolster that defense. But yeah, when you look at a matchup, when you look at a matchup like this, you certainly want to look at it from every angle. Deebo Samuel is that type of He's not a gadget player because he's still really good. Like but you can use him anywhere, Matt. And I think one of the elements to his game that's so intriguing is whether he's in the backfield, he can rip off big runs, but he's also excellent after the catch, right? So when you're giving me that type of upside in what could be a lower scoring game, a guy that can create on his own, especially if the quarterback does happen to struggle in a spot where they're getting pressure and they're getting hands in his face and they're getting to him early and flushing him out of the pocket, Debo does seem to make a lot of sense. I like him the most. I would go Kittle next just for the touchdown equity and the rapport that Brock Purdy has with him, and then Brandon Ayuk. I also think, and I know Ben mentioned this yesterday, I also think that Kittle on a 2-game slate, of course, all of this is relative, might not be that high owned, just given the Dallas Goederts and the Travis Kelce's in this spot, and probably even Hayden Hurst coming in above him.
He's definitely going to be the lowest owned tight end, I think, among, the actual starters. And the main reason for that, I think, is just the pricing on these San Francisco receivers. We didn't talk about Ayuk yet, but he's 4,400.
Real cheap. But DraftKings priced everyone down this week. It's crazy how cheap so many of these options are.
Yeah, I think this is generally speaking a fan-friendly thing to do. Anyone who's a casual, they don't want to just walk into the conference championship and be like, oh man, I got to play Trent Irwin. So I think it's good for like casual fans. And then hopefully those of you that are watching these videos and exploiting the tools can take advantage of those type of players. But I think the main thing people will see when they're building lineups, if you're using Fantasy Cruncher or hand building, a lot of these 49ers are naturally going to slide into your lineups. So you can start with McCaffrey. That's generally where I think people will start. They'll see that Debo is underpriced. And then as you try to jam in Jamar Chase, like Hurts, your other studs, you're going to find you're going to need value. And then among these cheap value plays, Brandon Ayuk projects the best. So at some point you're going to be like, okay, I don't want any more 49ers. Like I'm not going to take on 5 49ers against Philly. And I think to your point, the player that gets left out of that is Kittle. And it's mainly a factor of price. He's 52. You can pay up $500 to get Debo. You could pay down almost $1,000, $800 cheaper is Brandon Ayuk. So George Kittle's kind of sitting in this no man's land in terms of pricing. Even just putting him into your lineup at the expense of one of the other 49ers should be a massive leverage spot.
Hey, if you guys want to take advantage of all of our free NFL tools, I know there's only 1 week left, but look at it this way. The link's in the description and in chat. You want 5 free days of NFL. You're getting everything for Sunday, all of our showdown content, all of our main slate tools, right? You're getting the lineup generator, which is amazing. But more than anything, too, you're getting a look into what all of our tools do for every sport, even if it's just NFL, even if you're just taking the 5 free days for NFL and you're saying, all right, I'm playing the main slate. I'm playing both showdowns, right? Because there's going to be massive showdown games. Take advantage of our top showdown game, our top showdown and single game plays tool where you're getting ownership, projection, optimal lineup percentage, top score percentage, leverage score, all of that stuff. The lineup generator where you can do a million different things. You can now actually set the parameters on how you think the game is going to go, and it'll spit lineups out that way. You can build them for cash, for GPP. It'll spit them out for you. Lineup builder for hand builders, player projections, ownership, the top stack tool, boom bust, all of that. We have that for all of these sports, right? Like with NBA, with everything. So if you like what you're seeing and you win and you have a nice day, you're going to want to stick around and check out all of the other tools we have to offer for all of the other sports. So while there may only be 1 full week left of main slate content, take advantage of it. 5 free days. If you don't like it, we'll refund your $0 happily afterwards. But check it out. The hope is that you win. We want you to. We want you to win with these tools. We think you will. And that's why we're doing this. So link in the description and in chat if you want to get in on the tools that Matt and I reference every single week here on the show. All right. Anything else for San Fran, or you want to talk Philly here?
Just quick, wide receiver 3, Juwan Jennings. I think I prefer getting to other players over him. If you need like a min price guy, I think there's 3 or 4 you could consider, or near min price guys. The one thing I'll say about him is he plays more than some of the other players. But even with that said, when they use Kyle Juszczyk, 12 personnel, anytime they go into weird personnel formations, it's at the expense of Juwan Jennings. So right now, I think I'm leaning different directions instead of him.
I'm in 100% agreement with that. Philadelphia, a lot of weapons at Jalen Hurts' disposal, but I think we have to start with him. Oh, actually, are you running any Purdy stacks out there? Is that something in the cards for you?
Yeah, naturally, I think using Purdy is going to be one way to be contrarian with San Francisco because optimizers are just going to jam the hell out of these cheap pass catchers. So even if you just throw on Brock Purdy, that should be a little more contrarian than just running these guys as one-offs. And that's probably what I'll do with most of my ownership there. I think he should be the lowest owned quarterback on the slate for a good reason. It's not hard to jam the studs. And I honestly don't think you're going to need to play that much of him to be contrarian. But, if you're running a lot of 49ers, I would at least consider using him in some.
Also unique in that Christian McCaffrey always makes for a perfectly fine running back option to stack with a quarterback. So absolutely.
And Purdy's he's not like a pocket statue. He runs a little bit too.
Yeah.
Scrambling, but he's got decent mobility.
We actually saw him throw on the run a couple times last game, made some nice plays. So he can do it. Yeah. It's not exactly his forte, but he's capable. Talking about the Eagles here, it's a tough matchup for Hurts, right? DVOA, defensive DVOA, the San Francisco 49ers defense is ranked number 1. I'm gonna present this question to you differently than I did to Ben yesterday. Mix it up a little bit, Matt. How do the Philadelphia Eagles, you're an analytically minded guy, you know the game of football. How do the Philadelphia Eagles exploit this 49ers defense, which has been very good in pretty much all phases of the game?
Yeah, they have been. They got a really good defensive line. So I think a couple ways you can do this. A lot of times you can mitigate pass rush by getting quarterbacks at least out of the pocket in some way or another. Sometimes this is designed runs, move the pocket a little bit, and create sort of misdirection with your quarterback. And now that doesn't necessarily have to be designed runs for Jalen Hurts. It could just be ways to more or less generate space and then let your receivers win one-on-one, because we know A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are certainly capable of that. So I think the biggest factor on offense for the Eagles is how they mitigate San Francisco's pass rush, because I am fully confident that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith can win one-on-one matchups.
Okay, that's where it gets interesting. So when it comes to ranking these guys, right, when it comes to saying there are, and you already mentioned it, optimizers are going to jam cheap receivers. Quite frankly, if you're hand building, you're going to be doing a lot of that too. I mean, just looking at the cost of Juju, I know that his target share has been down considerably lately, but this is a Kansas City. This is a Kansas City team that could, Mahomes could target him 10 times for all we know. T. Higgins is very cheap. You mentioned Deebo Samuel earlier. There's still guys like Boyd and Kadarius Toney and MVS on a team that has a significant implied total here. Of the top tier wide receivers, and there aren't many of them. There's only 3, and I'm going to include Devonta Smith here just based on price because then it falls off a cliff. Among Chase Brown, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, how are you prioritizing these guys? If we're not talking stacked, obviously if we're stacking, it's an entirely different story.
Yeah, one-off, it's really hard for me not to prioritize Jamar Chase. And we'll do this from a projection standpoint first. Jamar Chase, he's only coming in about 10% more owned than Deebo, about 12% more owned than A.J. Brown. But you look at raw projection, he's 4 points higher than any other receiver on this slate. So this is a massive gap in terms of raw projection. We haven't even considered ceiling, haven't considered median projection for these players. They've made a very consistent effort to get Jamar Chase the ball, even with T. Higgins in the offense. I know we're not even talking about Jamar Chase right now, but if I'm playing just one stud, it's going to be Jamar Chase 1-for-1. Now, with that said, I do believe players like A.J. Brown have similar upside to Jamar Chase. They just don't reach it quite as often. And for a player, let's say you're playing the Millie Maker, you're looking to build leverage in a contrarian way. A.J. Brown at 7K, he's 600 cheaper than Jamar Chase, projects for about 4 points less. That's a massive gap. And then you look at a player priced significantly cheaper than him in Deebo Samuel. There's not even 1 point separating them in terms of projection. So optimizers are going to jam this Jamar Chase Deebo combo, and you're going to be leaving out A.J. Brown in a lot of these cases. Now, it's a 2-game slate. He's going to be owned to some degree. He's a stud. But I think you are still gaining leverage with this kind of player in this offense. So I'll preface this by saying, if you're just running one lineup, you're playing cash games, it's Jamar Chase. But if you're looking for leverage, I actually think A.J. Brown is a really good play. And I think he's going to be somebody I'm trying to get over the field on, especially with this like squeaky wheel narrative. And I mean, there's a lot of noise in their most recent game. They absolutely killed their most recent opponents. I mean, they don't need to use A.J. Brown. And Devontae Smith has been awesome too. It's not like A.J. Brown's the only weapon this team has, but he's a player that could be demanding targets this week.
Well, that's what I find intriguing here is, I mean, could you imagine if you and I were having this discussion in late September, early October, and just assume it's a 2-game slate, right? We'll say like a Monday doubleheader or something earlier this season. Could you imagine if I said, hey, Matt, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are separated by $200 and 1.5% ownership separation?
And less than a point in projection, or about a point in projection.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you'd have to be, as an Eagles fan, if you were an Eagles fan, I know you and Mike both are. If you told me that at the beginning of the season, you'd probably say something like, wow, Devonta Smith must have had an awesome year. He must have really taken a second-year leap and come into his own. And that's kind of exactly what's happened with him. He's been awesome.
Because it's not like Brown has been bad.
No, Brown's been awesome. He's been a little banged up at times, but he's been awesome when on the field. These two, I think they complement each other well. You can't just dedicate coverage to one side of the field when you have both of these receivers. The only problem for DFS is they're both priced up now because they've both been so good. So again, it's like, all right, Ja'Marr Chase projects so far ahead of them that it just single entry stuff. Like I want to jam Ja'Marr Chase. And then for salary constraint reasons, I can go all the way down and play Deebo Samuel. And Deebo Samuel, 1,100 cheaper than Devonta Smith. He projects for more than him, just raw projection. So again, this comes down to leverage. And at what size tournament do you believe the points you're shaving off by going to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith is worth it? And there definitely comes a point. Millie Maker, I think they're two of the best plays on the entire slate. But again, like Deebo Samuel projects for more raw points than Devonta Smith, and he's significantly cheaper.
How do you feel about the double stack with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, or throwing Goddard into the mix? Goddard, I don't think people understand how good he is after the catch. And I know I referenced this a lot, but if you saw it last week, he scored on a touchdown that most guys are not scoring on. And he also created several different receptions that racked up yardage after the catch where most would have just gone down on initial contact. So Goddard at 4,100, I'm not even remotely surprised that he's getting the ownership he is. I think you could, like, if you want to dump, and let me just throw this out there. You can, if you forego Ja'Marr Chase, you can still competently and pretty comfortably, you could still go Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. Like that just throwing the top price guys in there. You can still do that and still get to Juju and still have some other receiver. You probably have to go to Hayden Hurst or something, but it's definitely a lot more manageable, Matt, than it would be on another slate. But how likely is it that ends up getting you there would be the question.
Yeah, I really want to hone in on field size for this question because, again, single entry stuff that doesn't have a lot of people. I just want to jam Ja'Marr Chase. I think the projection is worth it, the projection versus the price difference. But again, if you're playing big stuff, you're playing like 100,000 people, you're playing Millie Maker style stuff, taking Eagles pass catchers and Eagle stacks is one of my favorite angles for a large field tournament. Because I do think there's very little that separates these players, especially when you start building in roster construction and correlation. Eagles are favored. It's not by much, but let's say they win by a touchdown or more. This is an offense you're clearly going to want pieces of, but the only piece optimizers are giving you is Dallas Goedert or Jalen Hurts, depending on if you pick him over Pat Mahomes and some of these other players. And even if you take the contrarian approach, stack Jalen Hurts, let's say you stack Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devonta Smith. You're going to do that at the expense of Ja'Marr Chase, but you can also jam T. Higgins. T. Higgins is 2,000 less than Ja'Marr Chase. Yep. He's had plenty of big games at the expense of Ja'Marr Chase. You could use Hayden Hurst as a tight end, still get plenty of pieces of the Bengals in like good pieces of the Bengals as well. And I mean, you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. You could use him as a value piece at 4,700. Then you have pieces of the Chiefs as well. And all this to say, you're building a Jalen Hurts stack with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Your lineup doesn't look bad. It absolutely does not look bad.
There's so many ways you can do things differently on this slate and still look at it and go, yeah, my lineup doesn't look bad. You really can.
And these Hurt stacks are going to be highly contrarian, I think, especially like when you start doubling him.
I thought so too. I mean, I don't know.
You also have to take this with context too. So, I'm going to pull up ownership for the Eagles specifically right now. They're pass catchers. You have
it's
AJ.
High.
Yeah, it's high, but what is high on a 2-game slate? You have AJ Brown at 37%, Devontae Smith at 35%. What are they together? It's not going to be high there.
Right.
And like even some of your ancillary players are going to naturally draw like 20% ownership just due to lack of alternatives. So you're kind of at a spot where, 30%, 35% is not really that owned on a 2-game slate. I know we have this kind of mental block where you hear 35%, and in the context of a full slate, that's massive ownership. But on 2 games, it's really not that much. And then you start pairing them together in what is certainly going to be contrarian. How owned do you think they are together? I think it's going to be like 10, 12%.
If it is, though, almost all of those will be Jalen Hurts lineups too, though.
For sure. But even with that, you're already.
That's not that high. You're right. No, you're right. If it's 10, 12% with them together, but I think you're going to see a lot more AJ Brown and Goddard lineups together, or Devontae Smith and Goddard lineups together than you will AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, for sure.
100% agree.
Yeah. But I do love Dallas Goedert as well, Matt.
Me too. I think rightfully he should be the most owned tight end. When you already laid out his role very well, so I won't belabor that. But just from a pricing perspective, he makes a lot of sense on a slate like this.
And for what it's worth, when I say I love these guys, this is all in relative to the slate itself. If this were a main slate, you don't exactly look to load up on every Eagles player against the 49ers defense, but there's a lot of good defenses. Cincinnati's defenses play well. The Eagles defenses play well. San Francisco's playing with a rookie who started 7 career games.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to break this down as simply as possible, Dallas Goedert is severely underpriced for the tight end position, while AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are slightly overpriced. And that's kind of juxtaposed against the San Francisco 49ers, where everyone's underpriced. So this game is going to be popular, but it's going to be popular in very specific spots, that being McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, and Dallas Goedert.
The running back spots. I got to say, there are, and I told Ben this yesterday, I'm actually looking at, so we have what? 8 running backs projected to get work in this game. 8 running backs projected with ownership right now. Kenny Gainwell is the lowest. I think he should be. Like, I would rather, I think if Elijah Mitchell's healthy, I'd rather have him. I'd rather have Samaje Perine against a Kansas City team that has allowed more receptions and targets to opposing running backs than any other team this year. If I'm going to the running back position, I think it's Miles Sanders or nothing for me in Philly. Tell me why you agree or disagree here.
I agree with you. A lot of noise in their most recent game. I mean, talking about a 38-7 win. Now, with that said, all these backs are involved regardless. I just think the split is a little different when games are competitive. So last week, for example, you saw Miles Sanders, 28 snaps, Kenny Gainwell, 26, Boston Scott, 16. That makes sense to some degree in a blowout. And they're all going to play regardless. But let's say this plays to the spread, 2.5 points, 3 points. I think it's more likely that Miles Sanders is your player getting 35, 40 snaps at the expense of the other two than any other sort of combination you could come up with. And now we're at a point where pricing is pretty favorable for Miles Sanders. There's not a vast gap between him and Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. He's only $400 more than Kenny Gainwell right now, which is shocking to say.
Yeah, which makes it just more likely that we go to Miles Sanders here. And also not surprising that Gainwell's pulling 4.5%. Last question. How comfortable are you with a Hurts single stack with a pass catcher, wide receiver, tight end, plus Miles Sanders?
Very comfortable with it, especially in larger field. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to be trying to do to shave off ownerships. So instead of playing Trent Nerwin and some of these other dust ball receivers, I would rather play good players in unique combinations, because weird things happen in NFL games. You and I have done enough showdowns to know that. But again, the spread is the most likely outcome. That's why Vegas projects it where it is. But we have standard deviations on both sides of the game. There's outcomes that are actually semi-likely where Philadelphia wins this by a touchdown or more. And if this ends up being a pretty easy victory for Philadelphia, it might just be, all right, I want pieces of just the offense across the board. If they end up being the highest scoring offense out of 4 offenses in total, you might want to take on the negative correlation just at the chance of getting all the touchdowns here.
Was just going to say that. Was just going to say this. This isn't a showdown slate, but a lot of the same logic and concepts apply to it, because taking on negative correlation on a conference championship round on only 2 games, it's very possible that that 3 of 4 teams just don't score a lot of points. And if one of them does, you're going to want pieces of them across the board.
Absolutely. Well said. What I was trying to say, you did it in a far more clear way.
I think you said it. I was just backing you up, Matt. Try and be a helpful host around here, All right. Let's talk about, we're 40 minutes into this. Well, actually, no, we're not. We started late. But where are you going to get a better breakdown game by game than right here? You guys don't have to do any research for the rest of the week. Just come stop in on Sunday, but we'll give you the final tune-up. Live Before Lock, Deeper Dive. You on Live Before Lock?
Yes.
All right. I'll be on Deeper Dive with Alex and Ben. It's going to be a good time. Hopefully we'll see you there. But first, we got to talk about Cincy and Kansas City, another fun game. But first, let's give away some free subscriptions to Stokastic. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to tell you right now. You got Prize Picks. They came to us and they said, we like you guys. This is exactly how it went down. They said, we really like you guys. We said, you're not so bad yourself. They're like, well, we have $100 first match deposit bonus when people sign up through the link in the description of your shows, and the one that your producer, Mike Lawrence, they were very detailed about this. The one that your producer, Mike Lawrence, is going to throw in the chat during the NFL matchup strategy show. And we said, all right, well, that's cool. We also want to give anybody that uses that link and deposits at Prize Picks for the first time, we want to give them a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And they go, oh, nice, all your NFL stuff? And we said, no, everything, basketball, football, hockey, MMA, PGA, everything that's happening. We want to give that to them. $120 value. They said, $120, shit. Yeah, $120 value, everything on the site free for the entire month. They're like, you're not going to give them the Discord too, right? Matt, we came back. We said, we're giving them the Discord as well. All of that. That sounds pretty good.
Unbelievable value to get all of that. Thank you, Prize Picks, for sure, for even making that a possibility. It's
awesome. $120 value, all the tools on our site, the entire calendar month. There's zero strings attached. And I say that 100%. I try and look out for you guys. I hate when we have bad sponsors, and the truth is I put very little emphasis and enthusiasm into that type of stuff. With Prize Picks, it's a good site where you're just taking player props, building lineups. It's getting huge. If you hit all 5 of your picks, there's no juice, just the over under. You can mix as many sports as you want. If you hit them all 5, you 10X. If you hit all 6, you 25X. But unlike traditional parlays, I say it every time because it's so important for you guys to understand how you can sustain a bankroll and build a bankroll there. Unlike other books, where if you hit 4 or 5 legs in a parlay, they go, thanks, pal. See ya. Beat it. We're taking your money. No. Here, you hit 4 or 5, you still 2X. You still make money back if you hit 3 of 5. So you're getting all of our tools, all of that, everything for the entire month, and the Discord, and up to $100 first match deposit bonus. So check it out. Prize Picks, link in the description. And one more thing, Matt, before we get to Cincinnati, Kansas City, and close this out. How about for those people that aren't available, the Prize Picks isn't available, use our BetMGM link. Get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. One of them is going to be available in your state, almost certainly. That's like a 48 state overlap there where one of them's available. At BetMGM, you take $10, put it on any game. Whether it wins or loses, you're getting 2 free months of every tool for every sport that we have, and our premium Discord for 2 months. And if you end up losing that first bet up to $1,000, you get it all back in bonus bets. Legit no-brainers, Prize Picks, BetMGM. And remember, with BetMGM, that you must be 21 or older to gamble. And if you or anyone you know has a gambling problem, just go ahead and call 1-800-GAMBLER. Just do it. All right, Matt, let's talk about it. And of course, links in the description and in chat. We'd love to have you guys join the community. We want you to win money, and we want you to use these tools and stick around with us for a very long time. Cincinnati Bengals. Let's do it, man. We got Jamar Chase. We already talked a lot about. Joe Burrow, kind of in a range of his own there. And then T. Higgins, who's way cheaper than Jamar Chase. Not to mention Hayden Hurst is $3,000 as well. The stack for Cincinnati is so incredibly easy to make this week. I'm not surprised at all that our top stack tool and ownership and everything have them either rated at the top or pulling a ton of ownership.
Yeah, you're going to get a ton of them across the board. So I think being very careful with this team makes sense. Especially, this is one where really look at how many opponents you're playing against, because this is going to matter a ton. In small field, I just want to take on really as much of this team as I can. I want to be jamming in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I don't care about the negative correlation that they might have versus each other. If Jamar Chase has 3 touchdowns, Higgins probably doesn't, but they're good enough plays in a vacuum where if it ends up being 2-1 or they both score 1, I just probably want them both in small field. Now in large field, I do have a preference towards Jamar Chase. He's especially with the target volume he's been commanding recently. Since his injury, they've made it a very clear priority to be getting Ja'Marr Chase the ball. It makes sense. He's one of the most dynamic playmakers in the league. But at some point, this has gone too far. And I do believe pricing is getting close to that point with T. Higgins $2,200 cheaper than Ja'Marr Chase. So we mentioned some really unique ways, I think, to build with the Bengals here, where you leave out Ja'Marr Chase and jam in T. Higgins. Maybe you're using A.J. Brown or something like that in his stead. And the last thing here is I really like Tyler Boyd as a value receiver, especially if people are going to be playing guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Brandon Ayuk. I think if you just go down one pricing tier, you're not really sacrificing that much by going to Tyler Boyd. The only question you run into is, okay, I'm probably not playing Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. So you're probably going to have to leave one of them out. But I do think Boyd's addition into lineups is going to be a nice leverage point for the Bengals, but should be highly owned for good reason. It's an awesome team. Prices are good on all of these guys. I think just being careful with how many and in what combination you use them should be a consideration.
I'm also a big fan in large fields of stacking Burrow with Mixon or even Samaje Perine. I mean, how many times have we seen stuff like that pay off on these shorter slates? Perine last game, I don't think this should go overlooked. Mixon was the guy that had the big game with the 20 carries, 105 yards on the ground. It was super productive in that one behind a makeshift offensive line that managed to hold up. 23 total looks, 3 of which came through the air. But Samaje Perine, and of course, they had a favorable game script throughout. That's not lost on me. He had 12 looks in that game, 5 of them targets, Matt. Like, if you're telling me that Samaje Perine is playing almost the same amount of snaps as Mixon, I don't remember the exact number. If you do, feel free to throw it out there on their snap share in that game. But here, let me see.
Mixon 41, Perine 33.
On snaps?
Raw snaps, not percentage. So 41 of 74
Gotcha.
For Mixon, 33 of 74 for Perine.
56% to Mixon, 44 for Perine. But that's still a lot. I have no problem pairing some of these running backs with Joe Burrow. He's not afraid to target his running backs in the passing game. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes these stats can be misleading. I get that, but I'll throw it out there anyway. Of course, it didn't work last week for McKinnon against Jacksonville team, but the Chiefs, Matt, 112 receptions allowed the running backs this year, most in football, 806 receiving yards, 4th most in football, and 136 targets, 2nd most behind only the Jaguars. So it is an exploitable defense as far as running backs in the passing game out of the backfield go.
100% agree. I think Perine's a great leverage point individually for this particular slate for all the reasons you mentioned. Not coming in with a lot of ownership, but the touch split is not all that different than what you see out of Kansas City with Pacheco and McKinnon. Honestly, the split's maybe a little more favorable than what we see in Philly. And we know San Francisco can be a split as well. So this is one of, I think, the highest potential leverage spots for Cincinnati just individually when you look at a player. I like Mixon as well. I think he's completely fine. If you're just trying to jam in raw touches, Mixon's probably a player you want. I think he's a little bit over-owned at 50% projected right now, right in behind McCaffrey, a little above some of the cheaper backs on the slate. So my preferred build, I think, is going to be McCaffrey with one of the cheaper guys just in terms of cash games, single entry. We'll see how this shakes out throughout the week. But, I haven't built anything that I'm going to use yet for this weekend. But with Cincinnati specifically, just to kind of put a bow on everything here, I think because of how owned all these players are, one rule I'm probably going to use is like max 2 or 3 Cincinnati players. I'm not sure what it's going to be unless Burrow's the captain and I run like a full Cincinnati onslaught. Because it looks like right now, just building using our projections and ownership, a lot of teams are going to have one-offs of Ja'Marr Chase and and Hayden Hurst, or like Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, or Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Mixon. And a lot of them aren't going to have Burrow. So I think one way to be contrarian is just like full Cincinnati onslaught or limit how many you have. And you could still use 2, and even just like removing the 3rd might be one way to shave off a little bit of ownership for those of you playing larger fields.
No doubt. They're just so easy to get to that you probably have to be different here in large field tournaments. I think
and that's because they're all good plays.
They're great plays. Oh yeah. No questions asked. They're great plays. The Cincinnati Bengals are humming right now. Like, there's no reason not to like them, but you have to get different. So yeah, one of the ways I get different, and you already talked about it, and I had briefly mentioned it, but stacking some of these running backs, whether it's Mixon or even P. Ryan. Not to say that that's not going to happen, but I don't think Burrow P. Ryan lineups are going to be all that popular.
No, and honestly, they're probably a little more correlated than Burrow Mixon lineups because P. Ryan plays on passing down situations like anything third down related, third and long, up tempo game environments, 2 minutes. A lot of that's P. Ryan.
How many routes did he run last week?
I have it here. P. Ryan ran 18, Mixon ran 15.
Okay. So there's something.
At the end of the first half, P. Ryan was in like the 2-minute stuff, and he had like 2 targets back to back.
I know. And he gets targeted. He gets targeted in the red zone. We've seen it. So look,
he's not bad.
Again, when I'm talking these guys up, same with Matt, it's not like, oh yeah, greatest plays we've ever seen. No, but you're going to have to make some differentiation. That could be one way to do it. Matt, we just got a $50 super chat from Trouble 5. How about that?
Trouble, thank you very much. Very generous. It doesn't look like there's a question.
We got one right here. So
okay.
And I appreciate you, man. That's awesome. We love the support. It's our last, show like this of the season. If you guys could hit that thumbs up too, it would be greatly appreciated. Atone for your sins. But he said, hey, gents, thanks for all the content. Bink the $4.20 max for NBA last night for $15K. That's awesome. Looking to put a 4-leg anytime touchdown parlay for one for each game, NFL game. I guess you mean each team, right? 4-leg anytime touchdown parlay, one for each team, we'll assume. Who's the Gajeski Laffy ride I can put a few bucks on? So I did see that anytime. Did you see that bet the guy put 5 down or whatever the other day and won $70K on?
Yeah, that was awesome. Good for him.
Good for him. Straight lottery ticket. Just so we're clear, like, please, Trouble, don't put the $15K down on this or the $49.05 after that super chat. But yeah, all right, Matt, let's have some. This is a fun question. We'll do first touchdown scores. You can't do first. Can you go first touchdown for each team? Can you bet
maybe
that?
I'm not sure. I think you want, isn't it just anytime touchdown score? So just any. Oh
wait, did he say anytime touchdown score? Oh, he said anytime touchdown. Good call. Okay. Anytime. Yeah. So we can do that.
Okay. You want to alternate?
Yeah, you go first.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs and use Kelsey.
Yeah, love that. And we can pull these odds up as we go. So Kelsey, anytime touchdown score is. Oh wait, you're starting from the Chiefs side. Okay, I was thinking we were going to start at the top and work our way down. No problem.
Wait, I was just going team by team.
No, we're good. We're good. -115. Okay, so I'll go on the Philadelphia Eagles side of this one. I'm going to go Jalen Hurts, Matt. I think they get real unique in how they use him in this game against a good San Francisco secondary. I already have over 9.5 rushing attempts for Jalen Hurts. I think he has to run quite a bit. He seems healthy enough, and this is a huge game. Jalen Hurts at +110.
Yeah, love that. For Cincinnati, I'll go T. Higgins.
Ooh, what's that at? All right. What do you think? Take a guess. Usually you're pretty spot on with this stuff.
+210.
+185.
Oh,
pretty good. And then I'm going what? San Francisco?
Yep.
I'm going McCaffrey. I'm going to go McCaffrey. We don't need to get insane here, right? He's doing a 4-leg anytime touchdown parlay. So, yeah, that gets us to Mike. Mike, did you put them in by any chance? What's it get us to? You're good. I can do it. It gets us to, what did I say? McCaffrey, and then we have Hurts.
Yep.
You're parlaying that. Oh, I had to log in. Dude, DraftKings logs you out every 2 seconds. It's absurd.
Yeah, I know. I don't even, the sports book is illegal in Wisconsin, so I don't even go on to it anymore because I get locked out of the DFS side of things.
Long odds. Mike, pull it up and throw it in chat once you do. All right. So thanks again, Trouble. Appreciate you. Let's talk about anything else actually for Cincinnati, Matt. I think we broke it down.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. No Irwin.
I mean, he runs a decent amount of routes. I don't think he's a priority whatsoever. And I don't think you need to get to him because of the pricing structure. Like we said earlier, I'd rather be contrarian by doing weird roster things like playing Burrow with P. Ryan or Hurts with Miles Sanders or taking on some negative correlation somewhere than having to use a player like Trenton Irwin. Watch him score now.
Oh yeah, 2 touchdowns.
Incoming.
Who was the guy that scored like 2 or 3 touchdowns for Cincinnati when was it Higgins or Chase went out mid-game? Remember that earlier this year?
Was that Irwin?
I think it was.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yes, he used the crazy long hair. It was Irwin.
He had 2 touchdowns against New England. Yeah. Yeah, he has 4 touchdowns on the year. Oh God.
He's on UDFA, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Load him up, baby. Mitchell said, I think P. Ryan scores twice this weekend. Honestly,
would not rich man.
Would not be shocking. You should go put it on P. Ryan to score 2 touchdowns. Odds on that have got to be massive. But Travis Kelce, he had 17 targets last game, Matt. I honestly don't see why you don't have to play him in every lineup. I'm not saying that, but I do not see why you wouldn't want to play as much Travis Kelce as possible.
It's easy to play him. I think you one lineup, he's the guy you're playing. If you want to use this as your contrarian leverage spot, I can see that as an approach too, but I'm not going to come out here and say fade Travis Kelce. He's one of the best plays on the slate in a vacuum. If Travis Kelce hits, he's the only tight end that's still left in the playoffs that has even upside for 17 targets. Elite play, this comes down to, is this the leverage point you want to take by leaving him out, or would you rather do it with somebody else?
For sure. By the way, they won't let me. Why won't they let me? I know they won't let me parlay anytime touchdowns for these games. Do it. Okay. All right. Huh.
That's pretty good.
Not bad. Yeah, I love Kelce here. I'm also for those of you guys that are into the betting thing, maybe you're using the BetMGM promo, get the 2 free months. You want to put your first bet on something and sweat it. Regardless, you're getting the 2 free months. And if you lose, you're getting it all back in bonus bets. But if you win, it makes life a little bit easier. Matt, one thing I like here, Travis Kelce over 6.5 receptions.
Over.
Yeah, dude. I think he could smash that, even though it's at 6.5. I really do.
Agreed.
Yeah. He's just so dominant. He's so good. He's going to get an insane amount of work. Where it gets difficult, though, is, and I can't wait to hear you break this down. I did it yesterday, so I'd like to pass the torch to you on this one. Jerick McKinnon, we're talking passing game here. Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, Noah Gray. I think he's actually fine if you're trying to go crazy in a game like this at tight end. Who else? MVS. I don't know if Hardman plays, but he's out there. Watson probably gets a target. Sky Moore probably sees a target or 2. Like, there's so many different options in the passing game for Kansas City.
Yeah, this is basically the roulette wheel we've been playing with Buffalo and now KC in the playoffs. Phenomenal way to gain leverage. You just got to hope your guy's the one that catches the touchdown in this spot. And I think Juju is the safest. He's also egregiously priced considering his volume and his role on the field. He's like the only receiver that doesn't leave the field outside of Travis Kelce, of course. So I think just in a 1-for-1 situation, Juju's probably the safest. And with that said, he's still not really that safe, which is kind of why I like going down to Tyler Boyd in this range instead of playing guys like Juju to begin with. 2 targets last week. He looks terrible out there. Like, he very much looks like a $1 million receiver that they paid him to be. And I don't think he's very long for this Kansas City organization. Does
MVS look like the $33 million receiver they paid him to be?
No, that is true.
No, I wasn't trying to counter your point. It's just crazy that he got paid so much.
He has a very specific role, which is running downfield. I mean, they paid him essentially to be the wind sprinter of the offense.
Right. They paid him to have the best the best cardio on the offense.
Yeah, you were talking about getting an Apple Watch before the show. I hope he wears one when he's on the field. Really see how many step rings he can close at the end of his day, because it's all he's doing out there.
Oh, he's crushing it, dude. His calories are probably set at like 3,000 to close that ring.
MVS, ultimate cardio warrior. But like at some point here, we need to talk about Toney, because he's the trickiest player to evaluate, I think, in maybe football right now, but certainly the conference championship weekend, because he doesn't play a lot. In fact, he's rarely even eclipsing like 1/3 of the snaps. But when he's out there, very defined role. He's a player they're getting on the field for specific reasons. 7 targets, 1 carry in the most recent game, a dynamic playmaker, that the complete antithesis of Juju Smith-Schuster in MVS. This is a player that creates big plays on his own, seemingly at will. So it's very difficult to balance. Okay, what do we do with Kadarius Toney routes versus target wise? And I find myself landing on him a lot more often than some of these other pass catchers. I don't feel good about it. It actually makes me pretty nervous. But I mean, at some point, we just have to go with the most talented receivers here. And Toney's also giving you an ownership break compared to like Juju, and he's pretty close to MVS. I think what would you? Okay, so I don't know what the lines would be if you just had like a Kadarius Toney versus MVS. Who sees more targets? How wide do you think that is in favor of Toney? Because I think it's in favor of Toney.
I think it's definitely in favor of Toney at this point. Yeah,
same.
And it, like, let's say Mahomes is not 100%. I think all signs are pointing towards him being better than we anticipated earlier in the week. You mentioned that at the top of the show, but I'm still not confident that he's going to be 100%. I don't know how you could be with a high ankle sprain. Some of those targets to Toney, around the line of scrimmage, I think are going to be pretty valuable here. I think Toney could, I don't want to say, I think you could see like a, 7-3 split in targets in a game like this. I
think so too. And Mahomes is really difficult to evaluate. One, because I'm not a doctor. I'm sure they had some sort of imaging done on his ankle. And one, I couldn't read it to begin with. But 2, I don't know what it says. But a lot of times, we see this a lot in like basketball, where a guy rolls an ankle, he gets in a boot immediately, and the boot is precautionary. It's to reduce swelling. And then he plays later in the week. We don't know how severe the ankle injury is. All we hear is the language, high ankle sprain, and that definitely has a negative connotation. But I haven't seen the imaging. I don't know how severe it is. He's practicing right away. He looks okay. We just flat out won't know until he starts taking snaps. And right now, it honestly seems to me like there's a chance that people could be overreacting to this. And if the entire field is taking this approach where, okay, Mahomes is limited, maybe I just want to go to Burrow or Hurts. I think we should be playing some Mahomes. I think we should be stacking him and taking shots on these Chiefs receivers. And right now, as terrifying as it is, I think Toney's my favorite.
Me too. Behind Kelsey, of course, right?
But yes, of course.
Yeah. But you're talking just receivers. Yeah. Yeah. They're all so cheap. They're dirt cheap. Juju, 47. Toney, 37, pulling 16% ownership right now. MVS at 15. Let's close it with this. We'll get running backs, but let's close the pass catcher. Let's close our ring with this one, Matt. If you were to rank them, how would it look? For me, right now, it's going to be, and I'm not including like Watson and Sky Moore and those guys. I still don't think Hardman plays unless there's been an update that I recently missed. Limited at practice. I still don't think he's going to play, but if he does, whatever. Okay. As it stands right now, for me, it's Kelsey, Toney, Juju, MVS. What about you?
I think so too.
Okay, so you wouldn't put MVS ahead of Juju? I thought that might be the one spot you and I differ.
I think Juju, just like his route consistency is going to be a lot more consistent than MVS. And we saw that even in their most recent game. Juju, 58 snaps out of 68. MVS dropped down to 34 out of 68. I think, 50%. If like Hardman returns or they decide to get Toney more involved, or for whatever reason, they like Justin Watson in his role and maybe decide to elevate him more. I don't think that's at the expense of Juju. I think
it's MVS that suffers, for sure.
Yeah. So I think or even like Sky Moore, they want to get Sky Moore more involved. I think that comes more so out of MVS's routes and snaps than it does Juju's.
How do you want to approach Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco in this?
I want to buy low on McKinnon with everybody trying to play him last week.
Absolutely.
Talking about that pass catching role that he didn't have, which is going to be volatile game in, game out. If people are selling Jerick McKinnon, I'm old enough to remember that 3-week stretch he had in the fantasy playoffs where you needed him to win your leagues. I'll buy low on that for sure.
So will I. Where he had back-to-back 35 plus fantasy point games.
Yeah. This offense scores a lot of touchdowns. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire slamming into the back of his own line for 3 yards to carry, but falling in the end zone twice and being valuable at the beginning of the season.
Okay, here's how we'll close the show. I want to make this easier for you guys too, so we all understand what page we're on. We also have 14 likes till we get to 100. We have almost 300 people watching. There are certainly 14 of you out there that are debating it. I get it. It's a tough decision to make. A lot hinges upon this, but if you decide that you want to be so kind, get us to 100 likes before we close this one out in a second here. If you were to take the 5K running backs, Pacheco, Sanders, McKinnon, how would you rank them?
Do we include Sanders?
I said Sanders.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Sanders, McKinnon, and Pacheco.
Number 1 for me is Sanders. I think number 2 is going to be McKinnon, and number 3 is Pacheco. And this is considering ownership.
Okay. Yeah, McKinnon pulling the heaviest ownership right now. Again, guys, all of our tools, there's a million ways to get them. The links are down there in the description. We'd love for you to check them out and win. Hell, get inducted into the Hall of Fame rocking the Stokastic avatar. But yeah, ownership right now. These tools are going to be super important for a site like this. And if you were to rank, ready, Matt? Let's do this. If you were, last thing. I mentioned it earlier. I think Noah Gray, if you're trying to get super different in large field tournaments, it wouldn't be shocking if this guy has like 2 for 25 and a touchdown, and it's enough at a flex spot to get you there. But if you were to rank the wide receivers in the range of, let's say, 44 to 54, because there's not a lot there. So Higgins, Ayuk, and Smith-Schuster. How are you doing that?
Okay. Higgins, Smith-Schuster, Ayuk.
Higgins has to be 1, right?
Yeah. I think just from a raw point perspective. Now, if you don't have the salary, I think that's where you could debate. But I would try, honestly, to make it a priority to either get to Higgins or get down to Boyd. Personally, I'm not really a fan of the volatility of Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Ayuk is fine. So if I was forced to play a 4K receiver, it would be Ayuk. But right now, Juju, pretty nervous on him in his role.
Chat asked if we could build a lineup. Should we take us, 30 seconds and we put piece one together here?
I've got the time.
Me too. And we're over 100 likes, so it's the right thing to do. Men of the people. All right. Matt, I'm gonna kick this one off. And I will start at quarterback with Joe Burrow.
Ooh, love it. All right. Are we just going down the list? So you did Burrow. Now I go to running back.
Well, I figured I figured what we could do here is just lay the foundation with quarterback. You can go wherever you want at this point, but the quarterback's going to dictate a lot of what we do.
For sure. I'll just go right down the list. Make it easy. I'll throw on McCaffrey.
All right.
The free square, if you will.
So let's say large field. I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to go P. Ryan. I'm going to talk about what we discussed. I'm going to throw P. Ryan in here. Talk, Millie Maker style.
All right. P. Ryan. Well, we've got Burrow. I love Chase in a vacuum. Seems like more time than ever to use Jamar Chase.
Yes, sir. Let me give us an idea of what we're working with here and go Eagles defense.
Ooh.
So we got 5,100 per player remaining. Now we have a good idea of what our limitations are. Four left, 5,100 per player remaining.
Oh man, I kind of want to burn this.
Do it with Kelsey.
With Kelsey.
Okay, that's where I was going to go. Even if you didn't burn it, I was going to do it next. All right, Kelsey, 41.66 remaining. Yeah, tough to get to Devonta Smith or AJ Brown. I don't like not having Eagles in here. This is a bit of an issue.
Double tight end.
That's what I'm thinking, man. I'm thinking we go with a little Dallas Goedert here. This is not going to be that popular of a line. And it's not that. Okay. Dallas Goedert. So we got someone from Philly. We got tight end. We got Eagles D. We got McCaffrey. We have Kelsey for KC. We have the P. Ryan and Chase stack with Joe Burrow. 2 receivers left, 4,200 per player.
Easy. Give me Boyd.
Ooh, all right. That's going to put me in a dead zone, isn't it?
You got Ayuk, Tony, MVS.
We're definitely going Kadarius Toney here.
Love it.
900 remain. There's no way that lineup is popular.
And so one thing you could do if you were a little nervous about leaving 900 already being as contrarian as we are, just go up from Boyd to Ayuk.
Yep. Or you can go up from Pirine to Miles Sanders.
Oh, that's nice.
Because then you still have the Chase Boyd stack with double tight end, Sanders and Goddard. I actually think I like that better.
There's just a lot you can do on this slate.
So
I don't think this lineup is duplicated.
No? Wait, the one with Pirine or the one even if you put Sanders in?
Sanders, maybe it'll be duplicated a few times, but I mean, we're double tight end. We have a full onslaught Cincinnati. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here.
Justin said you don't think Kelsey Goddard double T is going to be popular or just lineup in general. No, I think certainly you're going to see plenty of Kelsey Goddard. I was talking about that lineup in general and then having the double tight end there. Not bad. Kind of a fun little thought experiment there to wrap this one up.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Follow Matt at Matt_Gajeski. Do it. And check out all his content over at OddsShopper as well. No better place to check out everything he's doing and win some money. Yo, use the BetMGM link. Start betting with us, right? Or the Prize Picks link. We got everything for Prize Picks. The NBA Bet Pro tool, which is free for the first week, has Prize Picks. Our Discord has Prize Picks. So if it's Prize Picks, BetMGM, get in on the action with us. Get the free month. Get the free 2 months. Check out our OddsShopper channel. Let's have some fun heading into the Super Bowl, heading into the championship weekend, and make some money, fellas. Anyway, love you guys. Appreciate you. Follow me at Lafayette_D on Twitter. Shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one as well. We'll catch you back here for, I guess, the Super Bowl. We'll see you on Sunday as well. Peace.